Have you ever seen a movie that isn't sure what it wants to be? One that feels like a petulant teenager, desiring to be independent, but has to rely on their parents to survive. Today we're going to look at a movie that fits that description, wanting to break away and be its own thing, but at the same time relies heavily on previous work. Even the title, Star Trek Beyond, can't seem to decide what it should be. I'm Ollamh, and welcome to Geek Corner Review. After a full minute of production logos, we finally get to the start of the film and James T. Kirk acting as a neutral diplomat between two alien races. And we get to the first major problem with this movie.
What's wrong with it?
This version of Kirk would never be put in the role of a diplomat. The Shatner version sometimes played the role of the diplomat, but he had full Starfleet training and worked his way up through the ranks. The Pines version barely had any training and was jumped up to captain through suspect methods. The fact that he doesn't even know everything about the gift he's presenting or the possible questions that might arise proves his lack of skill in this area. You have to remember that this is a captain that, in the last movie, was almost removed from command because he violated the Prime Directive when dealing with an alien species. He has proven himself as a problem solver and a captain of action, but that's it. He has no idea of what he is doing and makes a mess of the proceedings, so much so that he is attacked by the aliens he's supposed to be negotiating with, and Scotty has to beam him out to save his sorry ass. We get the first, we want to be different but still recognizable as Star Trek moment when Kirk records a log stating they are at the end of their third year of their 5-year mission. In case you're not up on the original, it only ran for 3 years. He even complains about how things are feeling episodic, like he's on a television show or something. Kirk talks about how he's not dealing well with the endless time in deep space, because his early life on Earth was such a stable and loving period of his life. Like the time he stole his stepfather's car to go joyriding and drove it off a cliff. I guess this is what happens when you thrust somebody into a position they're not properly trained for. To break up the monotony, McCoy comes in to do a bit of drinking to celebrate Kirk's upcoming birthday. And tell me this quote isn't racist as can be.
I found this in Chekhov's locker.
Wow.
Right? I mean, I always assumed he'd be a vodka
guy, exactly.
Bones tells Kirk and the audience that he knows Kirk doesn't like celebrating because it was the day his dad died. Wasn't that kind of the point of the original story, that he didn't know his dad at all? Where did this sudden connection with a man he never met, who never even saw Kirk's face when he was born, come from? We get another jab at the original cast and characters as Bones toasts to perfect eyesight and a full head of hair. Get it? Because Shatner wore a toupee and the original Kirk, by the second film, had a prescription for reading glasses. It's not even a point that makes sense, as right now this Kirk is so much younger. But hey, they have to point out that they are different by referencing the original. So they arrive at the new space station, Yorktown, and we get even more conflict that is there to be edgy and, as an audience, we know isn't going to amount to anything. They acknowledge the loss of Leonard Nimoy by having Spock Prime pass away, putting weight on this Spock to go to New Vulcan and start siring baby Vulcans. We also see one of the most debated scenes in the movie. Sulu meets up with his daughter and husband. It's a short scene that was added to honor George Takei, the original Sulu. Takei, however, felt that with the movie being released on the 50th anniversary, they should keep the character as Gene Roddenberry wrote them. Having a gay character is great, but it should be a new character they create, not rewriting an existing one and changing a major part of that character's backstory. Meanwhile, an alien comes to the station in an escape pod, telling them that her ship malfunctioned in the Nebula and crashed on a nearby planet. No real explanation as to what to expect, as the Nebula is uncharted by the Federation. As one might expect, there's no other ship available that can deal with the crisis except for Enterprise. How they know this without any actual information on the Nebula is the real question. We also find out that Kirk put in an application for a Vice Admiral position at Yorktown. This is another, hey look, we're not the original moment. Kirk Prime was promoted, but wasn't happy about it. He didn't want to leave the captain's chair and did everything in his power to get back to it. When he was brought up on criminal charges, his punishment was to be busted back down to captain, which was also his reward for saving Earth. We get a hilarious scene between Kirk and Spock, both saying that after the mission they need to talk, but they never let the other one know that it's their last mission. Finally, the Enterprise is off and on its way to the Nebula. Now, with all that we've talked about so far, this takes up about 20 minutes. The full length is 2 hours. And here's this little gem from Kirk's speech.
As we've come to understand, there is no such thing as the unknown. Only the temporarily hidden.
They really need to check the shielding on the ship because I'm pretty sure something has partially cooked Kirk's brain. We finally get a peek at the enemy, a group of tiny ships that can link together and then break apart to attack. Again, look, we are different, while doing something very familiar. When I first watched this, I thought to myself, oh, they're bringing the Xindi into the movie series. But it's actually a wholly different species. They attack the Enterprise, even drilling holes into the hull. We see a whole lot of awesome fighting throughout the ship, which for the purpose of the review, we're going to kind of gloss over because it's just really awesome action. It turns out that the aliens are after something in the vault. The same bit of technology Kirk was trying to present in the opening, which means that Kirk's ineptness at diplomacy was key to the aliens' plan. Convenience! What would they have done if the Federation had sent a capable diplomat? True to Star Trek movie formula, the third installment with the same ship means that said ship needs to take severe damage, if not be completely destroyed. They perform an emergency saucer separation, but it winds up crashing on the planet below. Much like another movie with a similar name. From here, the writers decided that they needed not only an A and B story, but a C and D story as well. So we have Kirk and Chekhov heading to the saucer section to use its scanners without even knowing that anything could possibly be functional. Sulu and Uhura trying to find the rest of the crew but being imprisoned by the enemy. Spock and Bones stranded with Spock severely injured. And Scotty finding a helpful stranded alien. Scotty finds out that the friendly alien, known as Jayla, has taken up residence in an old starship she wants him to fix. Kirk and Chekhov realize that the person they came to help was setting them up and find out that the enemy is swarming the Enterprise saucer. Bones and Spock find an ancient ruin linked with the artifact while trying to keep Spock alive. Meanwhile, Uhura and Sulu deal with the enemy and find out that he plans to attack Yorktown. Kirk and Chekhov escape and meet up with Scotty and Jayla, bringing us down to just 3 storylines going at once. Come to find out, the ship is the USS Franklin, an NX-class ship, specifically NX-326, the first ship to hit Warp 4. This finally ties in the show Enterprise firmly to the series. A side note on the NX ships, the entire program going up to at least Warp 5 was known as the NX program, ending with the Enterprise NX-01 as a renumbering when they finally reached their goal. Over the course of the next 53 minutes, we see Kirk's team save Bones and Spock, use the necklace Spock gave Uhura to find the rest of the crew, get the Franklin up and running, and leave the planet. While there is some pretty decent action and some alright bonding moments, it feels stretched. Almost like the writers didn't want to cut anything. It's 53 minutes of film that should have been cut down to 30. As Krull's ships move to attack the Yorktown, they realize that the ships are connected, and they can interrupt that link using the music setup Jaylah has been using. So they rocket in, playing the Beastie Boys' Sabotage to wipe out the enemy. Just in case you forgot this was the new Star Trek, and that they had used the song before. So it seems the crew of the Enterprise has saved the day and everything's fine. Except for there's about half an hour of movie left. Krull has escaped, but what could his plan be? Well, Krull isn't actually an alien. He's an altered human. They find out because of an old recording from the Franklin that just so happens to be playing on a monitor. It takes them a full minute of rewinding and replaying a 5-second clip before Uhura firmly states the fact. Just to solidify the connection to Enterprise, Krull was originally a soldier, a Mako, made captain of the Franklin when the Mako were disbanded with the creation of the United Federation of Planets. He couldn't deal with not being a soldier. Having fought in the Xindi and Romulan wars, he sees working with alien races as being a weakness. Sure enough, there is a one-on-one fight between Krull and Kirk with, surprise, surprise, Kirk and his team saving the day. Finally, Kirk gets amazingly beat up in this fight, especially for somebody who was saved by augment blood. Now that's never brought up, by the way. Whether it works its way out of his system after bringing him back to life, or it alters him. It's just another question left unanswered. Finally, both Kirk and Spock decide to stay on board the Enterprise. The crew throws a birthday party for Kirk, and we see a sped-up building of the Enterprise A, with a voiceover from all the crew with the Star Trek opening speech. And that was Star Trek Beyond. How was it? Confusing. Throughout the movie, they flip-flop between this is our own thing and we really are still Star Trek. They didn't want to be tied too much to the established ideas, but they couldn't stray too far away. They throw a lot of things at us in the beginning, and then it just kind of drags on the planet. The questions left open from the last movie are never addressed, but they try to work in the canon of everything that happened before the reboot. And if they had sent a decent diplomat at the very beginning, the entire enemy plot would have fallen apart because the great MacGuffin wouldn't have been on Enterprise at all. They could have had a really great confrontation between Krull and Kirk. If Kirk had been affected by the augment blood, making him a bit more violent and animalistic, that would have forced Kirk to decide which path to take. Cause war and make sure that humanity was strong as his blood is telling him, or uphold the Federational ideals as his brain is telling him. Granted, for that, they would have had to acknowledge more previous works than just slight nods and references. All in all, I like the movie. It's a decent flick despite the flaws and indecisiveness. While it does drag on in the middle, they fill it with some pretty decent bonding between the characters. At the end of the day, it's a reasonable entry into the franchise. What did you think of the film? Did you like the differences or wish they had kept more of the established lore? Do you think that the new series is suffering from the hit and miss of the previous movies, or are they on more solid ground? leave a comment down below, send us a tweet or a post on our Facebook page, and let us know. I'd love to hear what others think about this entry. As always, thank you very much for watching. And don't forget to prod the subscribe button down below so that you can stay tuned for more from Ollamh Productions.
If you wanna see some crazy,
Cheerio!
you should meet me and my friends.
See what's down those stairs? Yes, I kind of gathered that's where we were going. Thank you. Thank you. There was literally nowhere else we could.
Some of the tubes are marked with GNDN, which is a joke in the setting. The letters actually mean goes nowhere, does nothing.